It's a very good evening, everybody, to Tradeswomen Australia, around Australia. I'm Andrew Gill. Great to have you all here. And on behalf of Tradeswomen Australia, we acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands we are broadcasting from. We pay our respects to elders past and present and to all First Nation people. It's very good to have you all here. I'm also joined by the founder of Tradeswomen Australia, Fiona Mcdonald. Hello, Fiona.
Hi, Andrew, and welcome everybody. Thank you for coming on the show tonight.
It's great to see you, Fiona. You are looking very glamorous. I've just gone with the jumper and shirt, and you've gone with the I'm going off to a ball tonight.
I'd love to be going out to a ball, but I think the closest thing I'll get to is my couch and some TV snacks.
But, Fiona, there are some very hard-hitting stories that we need to talk about. We're turning into a major current affairs program for Tradeswomen Australia. Firstly, master builders have been warning the Victorian government, at least, unless there is a $40,000 premium for all new homes for first home buyers, the industry is going to come to a halt. We'll talk to our guest about that in a minute. We've also got at the top end of town, the planning minister saying he's going to undo the red tape and make sure those big construction projects can just go ahead much more quickly. And you've got a really, really special announcement about Tradeswomen Australia, Fiona.
Yes, we have. Just earlier this week, we announced Susan Alberti AC as the patron of Tradeswomen Australia. So we're very fortunate to have her on board, and we really look forward to working with the very woman who did AFLW. So very excited.
And I know that, she's obviously someone who people will know around, at least if you follow AFL footy around Australia. She's been so involved with getting women's football to where it is today as well. But she was very important in resurrecting and protecting the Bulldogs too, the Footscray team, to make sure they stayed as a team as well. But she's also got a great background in construction and development too, Fiona. So she is a perfect fit for the organisation.
Yes, she is. I mean, she was the first registered female builder, so incredible journey working in male-dominated trade industries, first-hand experience, first-hand knowledge. So, I mean, we couldn't ask for anyone better. She is incredible.
And, it really is, again, an achievement for you, Fiona, so congratulations. Last 2 weeks ago, you were named the Geelong Advertiser Woman of the Year, and now you are joining another wonderfully accredited woman, and just all power to you both. Fantastic.
Thanks, Andy.
And there's some yays going on, which means we have some special guests in our midst as well. And they are two wonderful women. We have Pauline Duncan, the Executive General Manager for People and Culture of Simonds Group Australia, and Sarah Palmer, who's a Project Manager, Capital Projects at Boral, and also a Non-Executive Director at Tradeswomen Australia. So welcome to you both. Welcome, Pauline. Welcome, Sarah.
Thanks, Andrew.
Now, we'll just let everyone know that, Sarah, you're up in Queensland, is that right?
That's right, Andrew. I'm currently in Brisbane, in my home at Brisbane.
Are you in one of those classic...
Yes, I am. It's 104 years old, drafty and cold, but wonderful in summer.
When you say drafty and cold, I remember hearing about Maya in the good old days, and Maya would send all the fur coats up to Brisbane in June and July and wonder why they didn't sell any. So when you're talking about cold, we're in Melbourne, people are watching from Tasmania. I don't think you should be complaining too much, Sarah.
No, you're right, Andrew.
And what about you, Pauline? Where are you at tonight?
So it's unusual for me. This has been one of the first times I've come into the office in the last 8 weeks since we've commenced our working from home model. And I made the joke before that this is the first time in heels and structured pants, no tracky pants today. And actually sort of did the hair. So I'm in my office. We had a board meeting today. I just wanted to congratulate Fiona too on the Susan Alberti as patron. She's been one of my heroes. So it's been wonderful. But yeah, it's an office day for me. So I'm trying to slowly getting back into office mode. I missed my tracky pants today though.
Well, so it was the first time back in the office for 8 weeks. what was it like going back to work? Because a lot of people watching probably have starts on a daily basis, but how was it for you going back into work?
Yeah, it was, and I'm sure everyone has these feelings too of mixed emotions, almost a little bit like going back to school after the holidays. Some trepidation, excited to see. There's no one really in here other than a couple of executives, and our CEO is in today. And with the board meeting, we had a split. Some of our non-executive directors obviously still on Zoom and Teams, but a lot of work to be done now in our return to work planning. So pleased to be back in the office to really dig into that work and make sure that we are as safe and well as we slowly return to normal over the next few months.
Good insights. Maybe we should start with you firstly, Sarah. I said I'd start with you second, by the way, Sarah, but I'm just a bit naughty with the way I move things around. You've worked across the globe. You've got double degree. You've practiced as a lawyer, and now you work in project construction. Can you just talk about these professional experiences just in a nutshell?
Yeah, sure, Andrew. I think I would summarise the experiences that I've had and the career that I've had by just emphasising how important it is to say yes to opportunities. So a lot of what I've been able to do and what I have done in my career has been because I've said yes and I've backed myself. And I think that's so important for a woman, and particularly a woman in a male-dominated industry, whether it be construction or on major projects or in the law. Just having that self-confidence that you can do it, that you deserve to be there, and that you can be damn good at it as well.
And Sarah, I presume when you started your law career that it was more usual to see female lawyers, but that also is an industry that also used to be very male orientated. So can you apply any experience from the law to the construction industry?
Yes, Andrew, you're right. When I was studying law, there were more female law students than male, but as I got more senior in my career, I became more and more frequently the only female in the room. So there's, I think that experience helped me feel comfortable with being in the minority in the workplace. And that served me well, certainly out on sites where unfortunately we still don't see so many women either managing projects or on the tools as I think we would all love to see. But change is happening. Change is certainly happening in the law, and I'm sure change will happen in the construction industry as well.
And Fiona, you better do the introduction for Pauline because I cut across your introduction before, so it's all yours now, Fiona.
Thanks, Andrew. Well, tell us a little bit about your fantastic career and how it fits into exactly what we want to talk tonight, workplace productivity as well, please.
Thanks, Fiona, and thank you for having me. It's a real honour. I was really thrilled to be able to jump on and have a chat tonight. So thank you all for giving up your time at 5:45 at night. It's a really big deal. So thank you. My career is an interesting one, and I loved what Sarah said just about saying yes and backing yourself. And I think there's probably an element of that in my career that's very similar. Is I've probably taken risks, and I go right back to a time in my 20s where I had a woman, and this is something that's a real focus of mine, who had said to me, you need to apply for this role at this time, and I was about 26, and I did what I think, without stereotyping, is a pretty usual thing that we do, which was to say, I'm not ready, I need more study, I need more training, I'm not at a time where I can say yes. And this wonderful woman encouraged me. So that was my 20s when I was in education. I then moved to professional services. And there's been one sort of theme, I think, all the way through, is that I have taken risks and tried new things and failed and backed myself. And it's been okay to fail as well. And when I say fail, it's been that it hasn't suited and I've tried something different. So going from professional services, then in the last 2.5 years here at Simonds Group, and I have to say that I love it. And the theme for me has always been that it's been people-oriented all of my career. So for me, I've got a lot of words in my title, but I usually just say I look after all the people stuff. And the people stuff for me is the most important. So really privileged to be in a fantastic industry, one that was considered obviously essential, which is amazing for us, and really focused in my people role around influence. I don't see us as the decision makers necessarily, or power, or being we're there to influence, and at the board, executive team and our managers all the way through, we've been able to influence through this period of time. So encouragement for anyone on this summit is say yes, take risks, back yourself, and it's okay to fail as well. Pick yourself up, and there's always something different in you.
Really good advice. And, you know, I've got two daughters who are 13 and 15, and I would definitely have them watch this back, because you always should say yes and always back yourself, which is great. We should start talking about productivity, because that's what we're here for tonight. And it means so much. Maybe Sarah and Pauline, if you could just sort of explain, Sarah, in your world, what does productivity mean? And then what does it mean in terms of what we've been dealing with at the moment with COVID-19?
Thanks, Andrew. So in my world, I'm currently managing a project in Geelong, just across the road from the Port of Geelong, where we're constructing a new cement grinding and storage facility. And so productivity for me is around the progress on the project against our schedule, number of man hours that we're able to work every day, amount of tons of steel that get put up, amount of cable that gets laid. So productivity is something that I keep a very close eye on a day-to-day basis. And certainly since COVID, there have been real challenges to maintaining that level of productivity on the construction site.
And can you just give us without giving away trade secrets, what are some of those challenges?
Sure. So everything from the requirement for social distancing. We are complying with all of the regulations and legislation around social distancing, making sure that we've got hand sanitizer and extra wash basins available for people working on site, making sure that we stagger when the different construction crews take their breaks, so we minimise the amount of contact people have. We've minimised toolbox talks and pre-start so that there's not so many people gathered together at the same time. We've also keep a record of everyone who is in the meeting in case we need to do any contact tracing. I know there are some sites where they will do a temperature check before you're allowed on the site. We're not currently doing that. But we do ask everyone every day to check how are they feeling, do they have a temperature, and if anyone is unwell or with a fever, then they are to stay at home.
And so I'm sure that's been a similar approach to Simonds, but Sarah, just for a second, how's that affected productivity? I presume it slowed things down at different times, but maybe also how's the communication work? Because maybe with less huddles and less team meetings, there's been different ways of communicating and teams have worked in different ways.
Yeah, no, that's right, Andrew. So there's been a whole, really productivity in the full sense of it. So it did have an impact on the number of people we were able to have on site, which immediately had an impact on, I guess, like you said, it slowed things down. Equally, we noticed when COVID first hit that a lot of people's mind was focused on what was happening from a risk perspective, and that obviously becomes a safety issue when people aren't able to fully focus on the task that they're doing because there's very, very real concerns and threats outside of their day job. But it's also given us a lot of opportunities to try different ways of communicating. So whilst we have not such big pre-starts or toolbox talks anymore, we have smaller ones, and then that gets replicated across each work group. So a different way of communicating down there with my team as well. I'm obviously up here in Brisbane, like you said at the start. My team is in Geelong, so that's been challenging, but we've found different ways of communicating with each other using video conferencing first thing in the morning, a number of short calls throughout the day, and just constant phone and email correspondence with each other. So I've actually been quite surprised at how productive and how successful it has been, not physically being on site, but still being able to maintain progress on site.
Pauline, what about you? Because we should clarify, Boral are providing those big bits of equipment and resources for big projects, all across Australia. You're looking at building homes. So
That's right.
How has this change affected you as an organisation?
Sure. Andrew, I have to say it's been interesting for us. So for those of you who don't know Simonds, we are an ASX listed volume builder. So most of our building occurs out on the greenfield site. So we're probably in a more fortunate position than Sarah in that the space that we have on the greenfield sites is very different. So the management of our sites is a little easier from that perspective. We have focused on really reviewing all of our processes, procedures. We have all of the same requirements that Sarah was talking about that we've put in place, visitors checklists, making sure that we're very conscious of managing social distancing, all of the hand sanitizer, everything, that all the requirements. And I think if we split out productivity and look at that from the on-site perspective, so from our construction, we've noticed an increase in productivity since COVID. And there's a number of real factors with that, in that we're doing things differently. So we've had to actually look at and examine how we do things. So it has resulted in, right across the board through ops and construction, a productivity increase. And a big shout out, I don't know if any of our trades are on the summit call, but it has meant we've always valued our trades and the professional relationship that we have with our trades. But I think that collaboration, cooperation, all the communication that's been going on with all of our managers and our trades has enhanced that, because we're seeing patterns of work that are slightly different, and we're at the point where we're saying what's working and then how can we adopt that post COVID and as we come back out. So it's been wonderful for us, but it has really been through that awareness, increased communication, and then we look at those who are, the off-site workers. And I've loved this, I have to say. It's given me the chance to just increase communication. So we do, as a management team, as an executive team, a 10:30 COVID WIT every morning, which is a focus on people. And we look at our IT, our infrastructure. We get an around the grounds from sales, ops and construction. So it's a 10:30 check-in with executives. We do once a week with our senior managers. And I have to say it's become almost my favourite part of the week, a 4 o'clock Zoom meeting around Australia with all of our senior managers on a call. We have a bit of fun as well, which is really nice. Tonight was a heartfelt one where we're at the point where it was, are you guys looking after yourselves? So we make sure that we cover off all of our WHS, but we are really taking great care of each other in that meeting. We also did something that was pretty fun. We decided that if we could be doing Zoom meetings and communicating regularly, that we would do a whole of company end of month get together. So we had about 250 on a Zoom meeting with a DJ, and it was wonderful. So we've got two CEOs at the moment. We have joint CEOs, Kelvin Ryan and Rex Simonds. So we had a business update, but it's given us the opportunity to communicate more. So for us, really wonderful productivity improvements that we will certainly go forward. But from my perspective, the chance to just communicate frequently using this great technology. Someone said to me today, feels a bit old-fashioned picking up the phone. And it was like, I need to see you. I need to be on Teams. I need to be on Zoom and see you. So interesting, those shifts in how we're doing things. And
so it sounds that in both organisations, Sarah, the old adage that I heard Janine Ellis talk about a long time ago, saying if you're working in your business, you can't work on your business. So you're technically working on big projects, and now you're not being interrupted per se. You can actually focus on that from afar and still have great teams implementing. Right. And you're also talking about, Pauline, the idea that you've got great new ways to actually create productivity on site that you can use going forward as well.
Absolutely.
Now, Fiona, one thing we haven't talked about yet tonight is who's watching. Are there comments coming in? can you give us a little update on what's happening, and are there any questions we need to hit these expert panel?
The question ready to go.
You've already got a question ready to go.
Sorry.
Because lots of people have given us lots of comments over each episode, which has been great. So Fiona, do you have some comments that are coming through now?
Yes, I've got a comment, Pauline, and from Sarah, seeing how they've and a comment from what construction industry during COVID. So it really ties into a question on how has COVID impacted both your businesses, Pauline and Sarah, in the residential and the commercial industries.
Now, Fiona, could you repeat the start of that question, because I didn't hear it. So again, we're using the wonderful means that we are doing now, but of course, sometimes things don't go the way we need. So just repeat the start of that question, please, Fiona.
Of course. I think
so we're not hearing that start. We're getting a stagger. We'll just see if we can just get Fiona back for a second. What we might do, we might come back to Fiona's question in a second. Fiona might even SMS that to me, but let's go. We have a video question from a young carpenter on the tools. Let's see what he has to ask our expert panel.
Righto, Chippy crew. I know how sales are down at the moment. What can I do to make a good pipeline of work?
So he might be someone who might work with Simonds sometimes. I don't know, Pauline, but what's your little piece of advice to a young tradie who's got a small team, needs to get that pipeline reopened?
Yeah, look, this is a great question, and I think the answer to this, first of all, is the awareness around it. So while sales may be down or may be slower, that chance to really have a look at what are your other channels. So this is where you put your real stakeholder communications hat on for these guys. So who's my audience? Who am I currently working with? What are the other opportunities out there? And I'd encourage these guys who are asking these kinds of questions to think about who they're currently servicing, but who else is out there. So it's a really good chance to kind of expand, your market reach. And then to also have a look at, because we've got so many great tools at the moment, how could you really look at your digital marketing? So how are the guys getting out there and telling their story on social media, on any of the other channels that they might be using? I don't know if the guys are using LinkedIn, other kinds of notice boards, forums. A great chance while things are slower to do a little bit like what we've done and just have a look at how we're doing things. What are our processes? Who else are we not talking to? It gives you a chance to do a bit of a reset. And I would really encourage, I think it's such a great question that these guys are stopping and saying, well, sales are down, but how do I get the pipeline going? What's your own personal brand? So networking, there's great opportunities for networking on Zoom. Do a virtual meeting with some other guys in the same space, have a chat, find out what they're doing. But it's a great chance to reset the pipeline of work ready to go. Think about your marketing, think about your personal brand.
And, this little magic device here, you can do just as we had there with that lovely message already, just doing that little thing. Hey, it's Josh, I'm on site now. We're about to put the roof on. We're about to do the fascia, whatever those things are, just being present.
Absolutely.
Makes people think of you.
Yeah, and can I say that he's a legend. He is amazing. So use the camera. He's a ripper. That is fantastic. Lots of personality. Get your little videos out, Instagram videos, and I love that he's thinking about that pipeline of work. So he's ready to, hit it when we come back out.
Good on you. Great question. Now, what I might ask this question. This is from Leanne. This is the question that we just couldn't hear from Fiona. Well, Fiona, you sent this to me. What's the longevity of the building construction industry being under? So maybe, Sarah, is that something that you are seeing in your area where you're supplying to large projects? Is there less demand for some of these things? Or what's your advice to Leanne for this longevity to continue, or how we can enhance it all together?
Yeah, well, I think encouragingly, the construction industry was considered an essential service throughout the whole shutdown, and we've seen statements from both the Prime Minister and different state ministers around investment in the construction and infrastructure sector. So I think being in the construction industry is a good place to be at the moment. However, yes, there has been an impact to projects. Everything from some projects like our one slowing down, so still progressing, but at a slower rate, to some projects that haven't started yet being delayed, other projects being stopped. But I think the longer term view is a positive one for the construction industry because of that focus and that investment from government.
And Sarah, do you think also, because one thing we sort of didn't really touch on, in Australia, after 8 weeks, lockdown is kind of reduced. Bars, restaurants start to open in a couple of weeks in Victoria. In South Australia, they're already open. So there's a sense of, I presume, all those indicators, but we want to know that there are cranes on big projects. We want to know that there are lots of building of houses going all around Australia, because they aren't just the barometer, they are actually the lifeblood of Australia. So that advice is really good. We've got another one that's just come in, old-fashioned, Pauline, on the text. Look at that, on the text that's coming in from Kimberly. How could you approach driving change in an old school culture? So we've already heard about some of the changes you've made, Pauline, and also some of the ways of managing this, Sarah. So maybe it's a quick response to Kimberly for both of you.
Sure, Sarah, happy for me to jump in first there.
Very polite, yes, please.
Do you want to jump in there? It's a great question, and I think again in terms of at the moment there is an opportunity. So being able to communicate like we've been able to do has been wonderful. So I would encourage increased communication. Really, I used that word before, thinking in terms of your role as an influencer, and I know that has different connotations with social media influencer, but it's actually the same kind of notion that you're out there just influencing where you can. We have been able to influence around people. So the safe, well, how do we do things differently? What does productivity look like? How are we going to impact our business? So think in terms of your influence and where you can influence, particularly around communication, care, and consistency. Consistency has been a really big thing. So think about those 3 things.
Sarah?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what Pauline has said. Start with yourself, role model the change that you want to see in your organisation. Use a good crisis like COVID to drive home how people have changed working and really drawing on the positives from that. Believing that change is possible, and it is, because I've seen it myself. And connect with others. So continue to look outside of your organisation, look to Tradeswomen Australia for support and for a network and for ideas around change in more traditional companies or industries.
And it is very simple to hear, let's call it larger companies saying what they're doing, because I think as a small player, you think instantly, well, I don't have those resources. But the phone is a very powerful tool, and those simple statements, it may even be things like, if you're in the street, doing a letterbox saying, we are open to help you with small renovations. We are hoping to, I've noticed that your fascias on your front of your house need repairing. We're in the area, we'd like to help you. Often those communications may not happen straight away, but in 6 months' time, they say, that tradie was really good, or that plumber was really good, whoever that was, let's come and talk to them. You have to keep telling people who you are and where you are all the time. And honestly, those trucks you have, those branded trucks, they're always very good, powerful tools of advertising too, aren't they? We might go to another question. Let's go. There's another video question. Now, by the way, I have some noise happening outside, and one of those noises was one of our dear friends who is a builder. So he was making lots of noise walking through the house just then. So I'm very sorry. He's just picking up a child. Let's go to the next question. And this is Tennille. She's a tradie, and let's hear what Tennille has to ask.
I I'm Chanel. I'm an apprentice painter. I was just wondering how we can keep safe in these times going into clients' houses to paint. Thanks.
And to Neil, and also her employer, Peter McGuan, also, I think independently sent us a question too on the same area, the concern. Now, maybe that's gone down a little bit in the last couple of weeks because we're now coming out of it. But to both of you, you are running organisations where people and protection is number one. So what are some of the steps that you are at least giving people's tradies advice to, and how do you apply that in a smaller domestic market, in a home?
Well, I would encourage Neil to have a look at some of the resources that WorkSafe and Master Builders have around managing COVID risk. There's some fantastic guidelines and clearly set out procedures that you can follow, but it's very much like it's a sort of the same messaging that we're getting more generally around the importance of hand hygiene, the importance of social distancing, the 1.5 meters distance, limiting the number of people that you're that are in a particular space with you, making sure the room or the house that you're going into is well ventilated, asking people, are they well? I think it's not so different from the message that the general public is getting around just visiting other homes and the supermarket, but obviously in the work sense, check out WorkSafe and both Master Builders for some specific feedback on that.
And Neil, thanks for asking the question. That is really good. Now, Fiona, let's just see how you're going there in internet land. I can see you.
Well, that's a good sign. Strange things happen down here in Geelong sometimes with our internet. I'll blame that. But I've just been keeping an eye on the chat and reading all the lovely comments. We've got M. Fry back again. Leanne's been putting a few comments in there. So thank you, Linda, as well. We've got those questions. I thought it was really good, Andrew, that video from Tennille and the feedback from Sarah. But we did have a question come in from Linda about, are there any basic tips on increasing productivity in general that are not necessarily COVID related that we could link into as well? Okay, well,
and also, we know online we've got our special expert, mindfulness expert, Lee Davidson too. So we have so many opportunities. So maybe let's ask that general question first. Sarah first, what are the general tips? Let's remove COVID-19 for a minute. How, again, in my smaller business, potentially, how can I apply that productivity learnings that you have had into my trade business?
So in my experience, the teams that are the most engaged teams are often the most productive teams. So some very clear, so for me, it's all around the preparation of works that need to be carried out in any one day, in any one week, making sure people have the right access to the right equipment and tools that they need to perform their job, make sure they understand the importance of what they're doing. So there's a feeling of purpose, of engagement, of wanting to be at work, of having the right resources to do the work, fostering a sense of a strong team culture is also effective, as is making sure that people's health and safety is the number one priority. And I mean that in the broadest sense, not just physical health and safety, but their mental health and well-being as well.
And Pauline, you've been doing some interesting ways of engaging your staff over this journey. Can you just share with us a little bit around that? Because it was really interesting. You didn't just actually look after your own staff, you also looked after your suppliers as well.
Yes, Andrew, we decided, we took a real community approach in our planning and preparation. So we have a employee assistance program, which we're very fortunate to have for all of our staff and families. It's free. They're all trained psychologists, qualified psychologists. So it can be anything from financial counselling, psychological services for anyone who needs it, a whole range of services under the EAP. And we decided as soon as we were about to do the working from home model, we extended that to our trades and their families, our suppliers and their families, and anyone who was in our community network, knowing that everyone would be affected and impacted, and particularly productivity. So we let our trades know through all of our building managers and through our EGM of construction. And we've just continually in our daily comms reminded people that the EAP is there. And we know that, it's ebbed and flowed, and there's some good weeks, and we know that there's some more challenging weeks for everybody, and a reminder that there is somebody there to talk to, I think has been encouraging. Andrew, if I could also share just on this one, something that we've noticed, and it's a really sort of practical tip that might be of use from our trades. We know that organisation, and I think Sarah said this too, just organisation is really key. And I think, not to generalise, but trades may have 3 or 4 different jobs on the go. And what we have noticed is our trades have been working incredibly long hours, working weekends and doing an amazing job. But I think the way that they've worked and organised themselves has probably been quite different, in that they will stay with one project, with one job, before they move to the next one. So it'd be a really interesting one to hear from everyone on the chat line there, whether that has been a factor for them, because I think that could be a very practical way of just changing a little bit about how you're working. It's that old thing about, people say multitasking is actually not efficient. And I wonder whether there's a little bit of that in what we've noticed, that people are sticking with the one job, getting it done, moving to the next one. So just an interesting practical tip to put out there that might be of use.
So simple. So the same amount of hours on each job, but you're applying it at one time and not going from place to place, which means less travel, more focused, better outcomes. Leah Davidson, you were a fantastic guest on our program a number of, maybe 2 sessions ago, 2 broadcasts ago. Let's just go back, and if we can, firstly say hello to you. How are you tonight? So I don't know if Leah can hear us now. I can see her. I can't hear her though, Andrew. How can we hear Leah? Oh, Leah, look, we've had some audio problems again. This doesn't reflect on this system. It's just the world of internet. What we might do, Leah, we might keep moving on. We can't hear you, unfortunately, which is a real blow. We might work on a way of maybe phoning into Andrew Power. Potentially, we might be able to put up your call. But let's just keep going. Leah's been very patiently waiting for us to come back to her. Let's go back to this area of, we talked about changes now. So maybe Sarah, what do you think will happen long term? Because you've talked about the way you are working in isolation to your team in Melbourne. You're up in Geelong, in fact, and you're in Queensland. What do you think will happen long term? What will you retain going forward in the next 6 to 9 months as a business?
I think the demonstration that we can work flexibly and work remotely is a huge win coming out of COVID. So for me, I'm a mother. I've got 2 primary school aged children, and one of the challenges I always had was feeling that tension between travelling for work and travelling to work sites and being away from them. So being able to demonstrate that you can still be effective in your role without having to travel so much has been a real win for me. And I think it's also demonstrated to a number of our senior leaders in our business that work flexibility is something that an organisation like Boral can do and can do very well.
Awesome. Now, I did hear Leah there, which means that's exciting. So, Leah, can you hear us now? I couldn't hear on the line, so we... That's exciting. That's good. So, Leah, we will come back, because we were talking about, we sort of moved around a bit, but it still is relevant. How can we give people a good mindset approach to dealing with uncertainty, either going into a house to potentially do some paintings we heard before from Tennille? How do you do that? How do you apply that even just to being uncertain about what's going to happen? We've heard potentially the pipeline of work might be slowing down. What are some of the advice that you can give to all of us from a mindfulness point of view, and just applying our minds to positive outcomes?
Well, look, I mean, in this environment, I think the thing that would be so great to remember, not only for their workers, but for themselves, is that we are so distracted right now by the extraordinary amount of change that we're all having to adapt to, that people go into their heads and stop being present in the moment, doing what they're meant to be doing, when we have to think about all the stuff that all this change is requiring us to think about. You know, we are so removed from our normal routine that it's really hard to just stay present in the moment. We're thinking about worrying about the future, about job security, and what all the implications of all the change are. We're completely out of all of our habits. We're thinking about what's happening at home with the homeschooling. We're having to think about so many things that it looks like people are being really, I don't know, like lazy or dawdling, but I think what's really happening is people are just stuck in their heads trying to get through the stuff that we've got to get through with all the change. So I think probably for the workers and for themselves, if someone feels like their workers are dawdling, is to just maybe think about, you know, giving some space for people that need to be doing this right now. And, you know, I just think I'm a huge advocate for self-awareness. Just even realizing that that's happening it allows you to go, okay, it's okay. This is why I'm being like this. This is why they're being like this. It's okay. It's not a long-term problem that's going to get worse and worse and snowball. This is something that's just happening right now as a response to what we're dealing with. So I think that kind of awareness is just really helpful. Just to normalize everything, to go, for this weird situation, this is actually kind of normal.
People do hear that, and Leah, we do thank you for hanging in there with us and making it all good. Now, Fiona, you've got another question just around that. We talked around that idea of, will these changes be just for the last 7 weeks, and will they go back to being what they were? We've already heard from Sarah and Pauline that probably won't be the case, that these organisations will be making changes for good forever. Let's maybe talk about the general skills shortage. And there was a media release that you put out today, Sarah. I mean, you're very busy, Fiona. I mean, this is a media release that Fiona put out today talking about the national skills needs. Give us a sense, Fiona, about why you put this out and the importance of this potential new approach that the federal government are working on in terms of re-looking at training.
Yeah, of course. So in Australia, we have a national skills needs shortage list, which lists 65 different.
Now I'm losing Fiona now too. I don't know if I'm losing Fiona. We're losing Fiona too. So everyone, this is Gremlin City, everybody. This is Gremlin City. I'm pedaling pretty fast here, but my bike's just lost its chain. So keep going. So importantly, Fiona was talking around the idea of that one of the big stats that she pushed out in this media release, which is amazing, was that the Grattan Institute in 2012 found that if there was an extra 6% of women in the workforce, we could add up to $25 billion, or approximately 1% of Australia's GDP, the gross domestic product, just like that. So that's, at the moment, we've got a declining female workforce around 2%. So potentially with Sarah and also Pauline, you're obviously in organisations that do employ women, and they also do promote women because of their skills. Can you give us a sense maybe of what Simonds and what Boral's approach are to women and bringing them up through the organisation?
Sure. Sarah and I are looking like, who's going to go first? Who's going to jump in there? Who's going to jump in there first? Sarah, I'll do a quick jump in if that's okay. We're very fortunate. It's a bit of a shout out here, but we have our homes business, and we also have a registered training organisation as part of Simonds Group. So pretty unique, and for me, it is those two great enablers of being able to build a home for your family, to have a home, and then to be educated. So I'm in a very fortunate position here at Simonds Group that we have both of those arms as part of our business. And just an example of something that we've taken, again, the opportunity to do in COVID, and it's been pretty incredible is we have said we'll offer free training to all of our staff. So we've offered a Cert 4 and a diploma in leadership and management, and a Cert 4 and a diploma in building and construction, to make sure that we're continually upskilling all of our people. We have something like, and Andrew Shea, who's the CEO of Builders Academy Australia, will correct me, but the numbers at the moment are about 120 of our Simonds Group staff are undertaking those courses. So we've again just used this uncertainty, if you like, that, you know, there's that word uncertainty. We've flipped it and said, in terms of the skills shortage, these are our people. Who better to be able to be really making sure that we've got additional capacity. The take-up has been incredible. We've been wrapped with how it's going and getting lots of great feedback. So investment in our people is a real focus, and I love what Fiona is doing there, and again, we'll support in any way that we can. It's incredibly important.
Now, Pauline, you didn't just offer this training to your workforce, your subbies, let's say, or your suppliers. You also went a bit past that too, didn't you?
Yeah, we've really tried to look to other organisations who might have had people who have been stood down, and extending it more widely if we can. So reaching out to other partners, community partners, and really looking at this as an opportunity to upskill. So we've loved seeing. I try and jump in. Probably sounds a bit creepy, but we go in jump into the class and just see how our teams are going and hear the feedback. And I mentioned there was one, and Leah would love this, but there was a leadership course, there was a mindfulness training. So, we had 70 people online doing a mindfulness meditation. So there's been some pretty special things, but I'm very thrilled. And again, the investment in people with this skills shortage, and any investment and the skills investments, Fiona, we will be supporting you. So it's wonderful.
Sarah, what maybe, and Sarah, you're back online, Fiona, which is great. Do you have any? Would you like to add to that, Fiona?
I'm scared now. I might drop off. Yeah, I think like there's a lot happening, and I'm sorry that I dropped out earlier, especially when we were talking about that national skills needs list and the shortage of women in trades that we do have. And I think that leadership program supporting your team is fantastic, Pauline, and it really relates into some of the comments I saw coming in earlier from people about how they can improve productivity in their staff, but also what they can do to support them in the times right now, and just something like that is so supportive. So, yeah, thank you for your kind words about our organisation, and great job doing that.
And Sarah, what's Boral's position, and how do they create opportunities for women in the organisation across all levels?
So one of the challenges is the number of people through either trades or in construction or in engineering. So Boral focuses on raising awareness at the school level, engaging with teachers and going to primary schools and secondary schools to advertise the fact that a career in the construction industry is a great move, and it's something that's available for boys and girls. We also tailor the way we run recruitment as far as making sure any advertisement for roles is written in gender neutral language. We also found we got a broader range of applicants, more women, specifically when we removed the company name off the job advert, because people were self-selecting out of applying for a job at Boral. We've recently become accredited with Work 180, which is an online platform for job seekers where you have to demonstrate a real commitment to women and to gender equality, and have a number of policies and processes in place that support women.
But that's really interesting. And we, in our last session, we were talking around just what language does and perception. And so Boral, employs thousands of people in Australia, around the world. But the honesty of a company to actually say, look, we'll take our brand, our most valued, cherished asset off, so that we potentially can get some new cherished assets in who actually cancel themselves out just because of the name.
That's right.
And we see that with other organisations, don't we? See there's been some very big ads, say for BHP in the last few years, where they often will have female, diverse looking people as part of the ad, just to make sure they are not, I think it's not actually about making sure they appear to be doing the right thing. It's actually deep down, you're actually making sure you attract the best applicants for your jobs across all parts of the business.
That's right, Andrew. I think with BHP and its advertising, it's around trying to overcome the idea that you can't be what you can't see. And I think that comes back to the idea of just the importance of backing yourself and believing that you do belong there, you do belong in this industry, and you can do fantastically well in it.
And maybe just, this is again not so off topic, but do you both feel responsible because of your senior positions to actually engender more opportunities for younger women, or not even younger women, just women in general? Do you feel that as a responsibility or just an opportunity?
I'll leave that one to Sarah and then I'll jump in. I feel like I jumped in too many times.
I see it as both. Andrew. So I do feel a responsibility. You know, there's often the analogy that you put the ladder down to take people. For me, it's more like cast a net down and bring others up. I think I've been so fortunate within my own career to have some fantastic mentors and champions of me that I very much want to pay that forward. And also, I truly believe that organisations absolutely thrive when they achieve a more inclusive and gender balanced culture and workforce. So for me, it's sort of, there's the moral part, but there's also the very much the business case side of me, that it just makes, it's a good business decision. It makes financial sense.
Pauline?
No, it's the same for me too, and it is a responsibility and one that I do take seriously. Small things, which is just making sure that I'm doing what I did, that someone did for me when I was 26, in saying, this is what I see, you know, this is where I think there might be an opportunity, where I'm looking out for not just the women, but making sure that I'm looking out for those opportunities. It's a focus and a conscious focus for us, and we have some wonderful female, next level coming through. So we're trying to do that with our leadership and management courses, and again through that very conscious way of doing it through our learning and development. But yeah, it's a big responsibility, one that I take very seriously.
Fiona Mcdonald, what do you have? Do you have any other little thoughts you might like to bring this to a close?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, we don't have many, women in trades, and it's so important that the women who are in trades stay in the trade and also have the opportunity to progress and become leaders in our industries, to allow more women to access the trades and to change the culture of the industry as well. So, I mean, to be working with Boral and Simonds, two great organisations who are doing great things for women, not just at entry level, but in leadership as well, is really important to our organisation, because we need more women in leadership, especially in the trade industries, to open doors for our future apprentices. So, yeah, I'm really glad that we got to have you both on the show, and I really appreciate all the advice that you've shared. And we'll definitely be getting this video out there to the rest of our audiences. And I appreciate your time. And yeah, really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for being involved in tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And it is a privilege to be part of this organisation, just in a little way, in my little office here, talking to very clever women all around Australia. And everybody, this sort of brings us to the end. Tonight we've had a few little kind of funny little glitches that just we can't control. And, if we'll get this, as Fiona said, we'll get this episode out to you as quickly as possible. But really, thank you for all watching. If you have other comments or you'd like to ask a particular question, please send those through, and we will do our very best to have Pauline or Sarah or both respond to you. And they'll do it in handwriting too. They won't type. They'll do it on a postcard and they'll send it out to you. But really, Pauline Duncan, Executive General Manager, People and Culture, Simonds Group Australia, thank you for being part of tonight's program.
Thank you, Andrew.
And Sarah Palmer, all the way up in very warm Queensland, Brisbane, Capital Projects at Boral and Non-Executive Director of Tradeswomen Australia Foundation. Thank you so much for your fantastic time as well.
Thanks, Andrew.
And Leah Davidson, who was there, she was there for us in my because of technology. Thank you, Leah, as well for being involved. She's still there. I can see her. I know she's there. Fiona, thank you. Andrew Power, you've worked very hard behind the scenes tonight. He's our webcasting clever guru. Thank you. Everyone, we look forward to seeing you very soon. Watch out for some more special announcements for Tradeswomen Australia, and we will see you very, very soon. Good night.